I did it! I solved the retirement planning crisis. It's done. After you watch this video, you can just go back to your life and never watch another YouTube video, never listen to another idiot talk about how we're all going to be broke in retirement. Just dust off your shoes and say sayonara. Except for my videos, of course. Anyway, so we talked about this a little bit last night in the live stream. If you're not on my live stream every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern, you're wrong. Then we do another one for locals only at 7 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday. So what we're going to talk about here, we're going to talk about an economist named James Dusenberry as a practitioner of behavioral economics. Now, I'm going to build up the foundation, all right? And then I'm going to hit you hard with a 2x4 on both sides of the face when we're done. So you got to hang tight through this video. I make it as quick as I can, but I got to build the foundation first to get a gauge from where I'm coming. It'll make sense. Dusenberry developed what's now called the relative income hypothesis. Central to that hypothesis is that the idea that the utility one derives from consumption depends on what and how much one consumes relative to what others and how much they consume. That is because people are concerned about their status relative to others. Yes, indeed, you are. People saying what and how much we consume indicates where we stand in the social hierarchy. 100%, man. In fact, it's funny. It goes on. Even when there are no taboos about a good, like eating dogs, like in America, we don't eat dogs. We're culturally acclimated not to eat dogs, but other people look at dogs as a delicacy. But even when there are no taboos, goods are subject to a social ranking. Brand name goods are viewed as superior to generic. A Rolex is not more accurate than a Timex or Casio, but everyone knows that a Rolex is better. Interesting, huh? The socially agreed upon rankings form the basis of Dusenberry's demonstration effect, or the relative income hypothesis. It's very interesting. Check this out. The social goal of a high standard of living then converts the drive for self-esteem into a drive to get high-quality goods. Consumption of high-quality goods becomes an indicator of status. As a result, when people are frequently exposed to, quote, better goods, unquote, they are currently consuming, they are reminded of their low position in the social hierarchy. To preserve some degree of self-esteem, people do what they can to close the gap by consuming the better quality goods. Like this whole thing with Stanley Cup. What the hell is a Stanley Cup? I thought it was a hockey. They're going to raise the Stanley Cup tomorrow night. Florida, they're going to win. And then it was like, I got a Stanley Cup. How many? And they even say, how many Stanleys do you have? Remember Yetis? What is all this? It's just a way to show that you're with it. The Lululemon stuff. What the hell is all that about? I'm in my t-shirt. I was shaved. What is this about? Most people have a desire to show a social hierarchy. 100%. Look, even I said this last night. I reconnected with a bunch of my high school friends on Facebook. It's fun. And we're all crushing, but you don't want to be the one guy who doesn't look like he's crushing, that you're living like an outcast. You know what I'm saying? Everyone wants to show. Like, I like the fact I could show a picture of my beautiful family sitting by our pool. It made me feel good. It made me feel like I accomplished something. You see what I'm saying? Why would I care? Well, because there's a social hierarchy, and you have it too. But there's an exception to this, which I'm going to share with you how I solved the retirement crisis. All right? So you have that. You want people to say, oh, that guy did good in his life. Look, man, you might be the exception, but that's without question. But there's an exception, which I'll share with you. Hang tight. Dusenberry was an economist in the 1940s. Now the demonstration effect, the relative income hypothesis, is like that on steroids because of modern social media exposed us to high-status goods on an almost continual basis. We are constantly reminded of our relative position in the face for higher material standard of living. It's crazy, man. Because you see it all the time. And for many people at the low end of the income distribution, it seems like everyone is consuming better quality goods. This reminder of low status causes them to raise their consumption and to reduce their savings as much as they can. Interesting. Here he goes on to say, if other people think a good is good, so a product is good, it must be good. We take our cues from what other people consider better, and our consumption decisions reflect that ranking. We are social creatures. We cannot help it. Interesting. And no matter what you think about the taxation, a redistribution of taxes won't change this. It won't. And this is where this article, this paper goes in about the taxation, redistributive taxes that will level things off and make people happier in the net. It won't. This economist from 1889 says, the drive for status was so strong that no amount of income redistribution would ever slow down the desire to consume. In his words, in the nature of the case, the desire for wealth can scarcely In the nature of the case, the desire for wealth can scarcely be satiated in any individual instance, and evidently satiation of the average or general desire for wealth is out of the question. However widely or equally or fairly it may be distributed, no general increase of the community's wealth can make any approach to satisfying this need, the ground of which is the desire of everyone to excel everyone else in the accumulation of goods. Oh, that's so free. And look, I know economics. I'm an economics major. I study economics. I read economics literature. I never heard this relative income hypothesis. Never heard of Quisenberry, or whatever his name, Dan Quisenberry from the Kansas City Royals. Sidearm Dan, remember him? Never heard of this guy. And why hadn't I heard of him? Because the main alternative theory that displaced the relative income hypothesis is one, Milton Friedman, was his permanent income hypothesis. All right, and Friedman says if people experience diminishing marginal utility of consumption, they'll want to smooth their consumption over time. As a result, consumption is not determined by current income, but by the present discounted value of average annual lifetime, called permanent income. It's a little bit confusing, but basically saying you're not basing your consumption on today, you're basing it over the course of your lifetime. I completely disagree with that. And so what Friedman was going to say here is consume less, marginally, you'll have less satisfaction the higher up the income realm you get from each level of consumption. And as such, you'll consume less and save more for future years when consumption is lower because you don't have any money. I get that. I just don't think it's valid. But for some reason that squished out the Quisenberry's relative income hypothesis, the permanent income. In fact, look, I'm a Milton Friedman fan. I got this book right here that was signed by Mr. Friedman right there. Look at that. To Josh Scanlon with best wishes from Milton and Rose Friedman. I bet you don't have that, but your old buddy Josh does. So I'm a Friedmanite, mostly. A lot of things I disagree, but that thing I do. So what does this have to do with how I solve the retirement crisis? Let's look at this right here, another paper along the same lines. I don't even know how to say that word. Pedagogic, I don't know. Model called the relative income hypothesis. And from this, we're going to read right here. This is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. If I can find it, right here. Most poor citizens of the United States, this was written in 1985, and the same thing's true today. Most poor citizens of the United States enjoy an absolute consumption standard that would be the envy of all but the richest citizens in, say, India. Yet the poor here are often said to be much less content with their lot than the upper middle class citizens of many poorer nations. So most poor people in the United States are more miserable than even the rich in other countries. Even though we are doing better, our poor are better than the rich in most other countries. Why is that? The relative income hypothesis. In fact, this guy says right here. There's another article here. Check this out. A simple thought experiment may convey the basic reasoning of why the relative income hypothesis is legit. Imagine that your income increases substantially while everyone else's stays the same. Would you feel better off? The answer is most likely yes, you would. Your income increased while everybody else stayed the same. You'd feel better off. Now suppose that your income stays the same while everyone else's increases substantially. Would you feel worse off? The answer is yes. This is because judgments of personal well-being are made by comparing one's objective status with a subjective living level norm, which is significantly influenced by the average level of living as a society as a whole. I talked about this last night. If everyone is eating ground chuck, right, and all of a sudden your neighbor gets ribeye, all of a sudden you're like, well, that's not. We're all content supposedly. Now your neighbor gets ribeye. You were fine with eating ground chuck, but now you're like, well, that's not fair. Now you feel less content, don't you? Yes, you do. If you're working and you're making money, your money's good, you're paying the debt, you're putting money away, and all of a sudden your buddy gets promoted now and makes $10,000 more, all of a sudden you feel less well off, don't you? That's a fact. So how does this tie into retirement? What happens as people get older? Study after study after study shows this. People get more content. Why? Because they're no longer needing to compare themselves to other people. They just don't. People they've seen it all. All the horrors they thought was coming when they're in the 20s and 30s and 40s, all the issues that they thought was going to get them, all the worrying about being laid off, keeping up the neighbor in their fancy new cars, wearing new clothes, all that stuff. When you stop working, you just start saying, you start losing the relative income worry. You're no longer in the competition for striving to get the better job, to get the better money, to get the better parking spot. Older people are more content because they have a more experience under their belt. They've seen it all. They're like, it's just not that big of a deal. I don't need that new Bentley. My Toyota Camry works just fine. And you might look, I'm driving a 2013 Toyota Highlander, so I'm fine with that too. I get it. But still, in the old days, when you're younger, you still want to show people, like, yeah, you've arrived, you made it. You know that. You still want people to see you, like, oh, that guy's successful. As you get older and you're out of the workforce, you're not doing it anymore. A, you're older, you've seen things, you're like, it doesn't matter. B, you're no longer in the competition mode. Yeah, you might see some guy on the boat off the freaking with Obama off Martha's Vineyard. You're like, man, that guy sucks. But you're just like, whatever. I'm telling you, with age comes knowledge, wisdom. That's why we got to look at our elders. Our elders have wisdom that we don't have. We don't, because they've seen it and they practice. That's why all these guys, when they serve him, are how content are you in retirement? The vast, vast majority said they're fine. That doesn't mean they're rich. Doesn't mean anything. It just means they're content because they're no longer comparing themselves. They don't need that Stanley Cup. They don't need that Lululemon, whatever the hell that is. They don't need that Rolex. They're like, what good does it do? I had all that back when I was young, and it didn't do me anything. You see what I'm saying? It didn't do me anything. It's kind of like when the Patriots lost against the Giants when they're going 18-0. I was like, that's when I started to realize, why do I pay attention? The Patriots win. It made me happy for them, but they lost, of course. David Tyree. But still, what does that do? It doesn't do anything. The older you get, you're like, why do I pay so much into that? It doesn't make any sense. It leads me to more frustration than happiness. And even if I'm happy, I'm not like, I didn't win. I didn't play for the team. You see what I'm saying? If I lose, why? I still go to my work the next day. Who cares? As you get older, you start realizing this. You start having more patience. You just start having more, what's the word I'm looking for? Empathy, I guess, to say, I used to worry about this stuff. Now I don't anymore because I've been through it. I've had a good life. And that's why the retirement crisis isn't there, because people are comparing their worries when they're working. And I got worries. I'm self-employed, for heaven's sake. The summers are a slow month of a slow time. And up right after, I'm telling you, it's always slow, basically the middle of June through at the end of July 4th. And you're always like, maybe this time isn't just slow for this time around, even though it's always been slow my whole career. Maybe this time is when everyone hates me. You just don't know. It's nerve-wracking. And you're like, how do I pay the bills? Well, when you're retired, yeah, you worry about how to pay the bills, but you're not worried about the Stanley Cups. You're not worried about all this other crap to keep up with the Joneses. And as such, that's why you're content. Like, as long as I got enough money to pay the bills, I'm fine. And the vast, vast, vast majority of retirees in America have enough money to pay the bills. It's just a fact, Jack. So is work stressing you out? Is it stressing you out because you can't pay the bills? Or is it stressing you out because you feel like you're not getting what you deserve? And why do you feel that way? Is it because Joey over there got what he deserved? Well, Joey over there got promoted, and you're like, that's not fair. Like, I've been there, dude. I know what it's like. It sucks. I see it on YouTube. I get jealous. Some of these guys, I'm like, how did this guy get so many views? You know what I'm saying? It's like, dude, what the hell? What am I doing? And it's a continual issue. But as you get older, it bothers you less and less. So that's why there's no retirement crisis, because people aren't in crisis in retirement. They're just not. They're content. And that's how we solve it, by recognizing, just stay the course, keep your head down, get older, and you'll see the knowledge and wisdom comes with age. Respect your elders. God bless. Love your thoughts. See ya.